Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is Professor M, and welcome back to yet again another first impression / review of one of the new anime that has aired this fall 2017 season. And today we will be talking about Children of the Whales. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So, Children of the Whales. There's a lot to say about Children of the Whales. There is. I will say this, though, that the first episode did impress me. I will say that. It was definitely something that I was looking forward to towards this season, and if anything, when it comes down to my first impressions, it's just that I'm interested. I'm interested in the show. It does have a very interesting premise, and I'm curious as to how the future episodes will play out. So, when it comes down to the story of Children of the Whales, basically we have where 90% of the population is marked. So basically it gives these marked the superhuman-like ability to use magic with the help of their emotions. However, we kind of find out, throughout this episode that when it comes to the marked who are living on what is called the mud whale, which is kind of like their utopia of sorts. It's literally like an island, but to them it's like an utopia because it is literally the only place in which they have any recollection of any other human society of sorts. However, at the same time, while these marked have superhuman-like abilities and can use magic for daily activities to help out on the mud whale or wherever else, at the same time, it also comes with a consequence because when it comes down to the marked, they have a very low lifespan in which they can be killed off when they're in their 20s or even their 30s. Now, the remaining 10% on the island are called the unmarked, and the unmarked are basically, simply put, regular human beings. They do not possess the supernatural ability to control magic with their emotions, kind of like the marked do. They are basically powerless, in a sense, and they have a longer lifespan. So, necessarily, they are just like a regular human being, but they are more or less the ringleaders of the society within on the mud whale, giving out certain tasks to the marked users. Now, that isn't to say that they don't have their own role in this society, because if anything, they are more so, the political standing and or government of, the whole society, keeping things together. Now, when it comes down to our main male character, he is in fact a marked, and his name is Chokoro. He's 14 years old, and he is basically like an archivist. That is what he does. He simply writes down people's names and or information, and even their deaths when they do pass on. He basically keeps a record of basically everything within on the mud whale. Now, when it comes down to, like, if his character is, like, interesting in a sense, I would not say he is the most interesting character as of yet, but what makes this series kind of interesting is that really, right off the get-go, you probably won't find all of the characters very interesting at first glance because of the fact we know so little about them, but the characters actually know so little about their very own world because all they have knowledge prior about is just the world that they reside in, which is the mud whale. And they do, in fact, venture off to other islands for what they, can access because they're so restricted on when it comes down to their overall, magical abilities. Because if they were to try to venture out further, it would literally make them run out of stamina in a sorts. Because I believe it was stated that when it comes down to their magical abilities, it's like taking a long distance sprint and they can't really use it for that very long. So that is why they have very little access to various other islands. So when it comes down to them going to other islands, they more or less just scout and try to bring about new information and learn more about the outside world. But they have never come across any other human civilization, and that is until we eventually see the main MC in this episode come across a girl who apparently is known as a apothea or something like that, in which she does not contain any human emotions whatsoever, as far as what we know of, and it does seem as though she does have a dark past as well, because we see her carrying swords drenched in blood, and there is also the dialogue piece that pops up in this episode in which she is telling the chieftains, once she is taken to the mud whale, that the rest of her civilization has been killed off. So we can probably already assume that when it comes down to this character, she does in fact have a dark past, and we can also probably assume that, you know, she might have been the one to commit the atrocity to, you know, her population, but we don't really know. Could it have been her? Could she have killed off her civilization? If so, why? If not, was there any other external force out there that could have committed the atrocity while she tried to defend herself, but ultimately she was the sole survivor? Now, there's another character that actually gets introduced within this episode of Children of the Whales who definitely will play vital importance to the overall story from what it seems like, and I'm not talking about the main girl that gets saved from our main character within this first episode. I'm talking about Oni. Now, Oni is a very interesting individual that we see introduced within this first episode of Children of the Whales, because he is vastly different from our main MC and really the other characters that reside on the mud whale, because right off the get-go, he is introduced as a character who has committed an atrocity, who has broken the laws on the mud whale, which in turn has made him live a life in the bowels of the mud whale, which is basically a jail cell. So right off the get-go, he is not really that well liked and looked down upon amongst the other members who reside on the mud whale because of the fact that he broke the laws and committed some type of atrocity. Now, we don't know the exact details as to what that could possibly be, but I'm sure we'll figure out, you know, more about him as we go on throughout this series. And the other interesting part about him is that he's also another character that wants to see beyond what the mud whale has to offer for it. He doesn't want to sit tight on the mud whale for the rest of his life. He actually wants to expand his horizons and venture off to other places. Not only have freedom from himself and other people, but to also, you know, learn more about the world. And once he learns about the fact that, you know, our main MC brings in the main girl into the mud whale, he wants to take her and venture off to her world with her, as well as our main MC. He basically takes him by force, actually, but it's kind of cool because he, you know, is rebellious in the sense of, you know, basically all the other people who are in the mud whale, because I'm sure there are other individuals who want to venture off to other islands and learn more about the world and possibly meet other people, if there are in fact other people, but they just don't have the balls to do so. But this guy right here, he has the balls. Oh, also another thing noting is that apparently he actually has the most radiant of magical abilities when it comes down to his character. He is a marked, but apparently he is, I guess, the most powerful when it comes to the marked users who reside on the mud whale, so there is that to take into consideration as well. So yeah, when it comes to Oni as a character, he is definitely the most interesting of the characters that have been introduced so far from this series, from what I have seen. And not only, you know, does he have all the qualities in which I just stated, but also his name alone means demon. Oni. Pronounced in Japanese, that means demon. So I mean that's kind of cool as well. So you could definitely tell that there is some dark nature residing within him as well. So there is that. Now, when it comes down to this first episode of Children of the Whales, there is a lot of information that is given out, and a lot of questions more so than answers. And one of the things that I think we should all take into consideration is that our main heroine of this series, named Lycos, she apparently brings up several times throughout the episode of this place known as Falana. Now, we have no idea what this Falana could be, but apparently it is a place that our main heroine, Lycos, knows of, and it is implied that Falana is actually the Mud Whale, or at least a place that was prior before the Mud Whale came to be. And even when we see Lycos being intimidated amongst the head council members, they even disregard her questions. So there are quite a bit of things that the head council is keeping amongst, you know, other societies as well as their very own. And speaking of the head council members actually keeping things to themselves, it is even shown that in this episode at the very end, one of the head council members states that right after when Oni ends up taking Lycos and our main male character and, you know, basically forces them to go on to an adventure and seek out other civilizations, we have it to where one of the head council members states to one of the chieftains that they mustn't. If they contact the world, calamity will befall us. So there is a lot of mysteries still surrounding this world of Children of the Whales, and the biggest topic to bring up, or the biggest question I should say, is why exactly is the head council keeping things locked away from their own people? Why exactly are they keeping these secrets amongst, you know, their own people? It apparently seems as though there are other civilizations, and it seems as though that they do not want to bring in contact with these other civilizations because apparently, for some odd reason, calamity will befall them. It will be the downfall of them. And that is the other biggest question as to why exactly is the world like this? If there are other civilizations out there, then why are they divided amongst each other? So that is the biggest question. What exactly happened to the world in order for them to get to this point? But now when it comes down to the overall episode, it seems as though this is basically going to be a journey of self-discovery as our characters are going out on a journey with each other to basically find out more about themselves as well as about the outside world and to see if there is in fact another civilization somewhere beyond the horizon in which they can finally, you know, live amongst other humans for once other than their own. And just simply put, just learn more about the world as well as learning more about each other. Now, when it comes down to the animation of this series, I will say that the animation isn't really, I guess, the most, you know, extravagant thing we have seen, if that is the word that I can use here for this review. But it really isn't really anything that completely stands out. But what does stand out is the art. The art of the series is what I find the most appealing. It's not the animation that carries this series, but it's the art. Okay, the animation is done with the characters, but when it comes down to the art, you know, with the backgrounds and other stuff that is drawn throughout, it's like painted with watercolors from what it seems like, and it has a very vibrant and aesthetic feel to it, and I really, really do like it. Now, to be honest with you, there are times within the animation that it will look very silly in some cases, in certain parts of the episode, but nothing really distracts from that, to be honest. There was only one scene in which it really kind of looked bad, and that was when the animation was about like 14 minutes into the episode, in which we see the character who is trying to run to the chieftain to tell about that, you know, they picked up this strange girl onto the Mud Whale. You know, we have him like skipping across, you know, the background trying to run to the chieftain, and that to me was a little bit of, you know, an off-put, but I mean, that was really the only gripe I really had with the episode. So yeah, when it comes down to the animation isn't really the best, but the artwork is what I think everyone will appreciate with the series, because it definitely does look beautiful. I mean, even the, you know, poster for, you know, the promotional artwork for this series is very vibrant and very aesthetic feeling to it. So, I mean, when it comes down to the art, I really do dig it. As far as the music goes, the music is alright so far. I didn't really find any tracks that specifically stood out, but the music does have a nice feel to it, but nothing really, you know, eye-catching, or ear-catching, I guess you would say. So yeah, guys, I think that about does it for my first impression / review of the very first episode of Children of the Whales. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm very curious as to what this series is going to be like once we learn about more about the characters as well as the world, because as of right now, there are many mysteries revolving around, you know, these characters as well as the world, and I'm very curious to just, you know, go ahead and piece together the puzzle, you know, and learn more about, you know, these individuals and the world, because I do really believe, like, this series could have potential. It could. I was very interested in this first episode, and I really am interested to see the next episode and see what becomes of it. So, yeah, let me know your overall thoughts in the comments down below. I definitely recommend you guys check this episode of Children of the Whale out, because it was personally, to me, kind of interesting. Oh, but keep in mind, if you do in fact check this series out, just keep in mind that most likely this isn't going to have a regular schedule, because we're relying, when it comes down to this series, with fan dubs. I don't really think anyone has picked this up yet. There's no Crunchyroll, no Anime Strike that has picked this series up as far as I know of the time of the recording of this video. So expect fan dubs to come out for this series, and because of that, that means that we won't really have a solid schedule when it comes to the release of each and every episode. So it could be on Sundays, it could be on Mondays, it could be on Tuesdays, it could be whenever. So just keep that in mind. But with that said, everyone, I really hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed. Hit that red subscribe button down below if you want to see more content from me. And with that said, everyone, I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.